please rise. Today is March 9th, City Commission of Leesburg, and Commissioner Christian will say the invocation.
Can bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day which you've made. We're rejoicing, we're glad in it. We thank you, God, for being able to live, work in such a great city such as Leesburg. We pray for our mayor, our city council, all of our city leaders, our workers, employees, our city manager. We pray, God, for wisdom and guidance tonight. We pray the decisions we make, God, will be beneficial for all of those who are affected by what we do tonight. We pray for our country and our world. We pray, God, that you will shield and protect us. God, we understand that everything's in your hands, so we pray for protection. We pray for our business owners. We pray for prosperity and peace within our city, our state, and our country. We pray, God, for all those leaders who have rule over us. We pray, God, you would give them wisdom and insight. Pray for our first responders, our military, those that are battling, God, this dreadful virus that's taken our world by storm. But, God, we know who holds the answer, and that is you. So we pray for divine protection and guidance. Tonight we ask all these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We have no proclamations tonight. We do have a few presentations. The first of which I see we have some people here that are getting awards, and I'd like to start that off. You're giving a presentation for... Oh, okay. Great, thank you. Sorry, did see you up there.
You want? Yeah, go ahead.
They're right here.
Okay, great.
Do you have the? You want me to hand them out?
Yes, and I have the list here for you. Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We're happy to see family members and coworkers here to support the achievement of these employees, so we'll get started. The first employees I will call up are 5-year employees. Ms. Diana Bouchard, she's with Public Works. Mr. Dalton Buxton is a police officer with our police department. Mr. Mario Crespo, he works in our public works department as a mechanic. Miss Victoria Parks, our Deputy City Clerk. Mr. John Shear is a police officer in our police department. Susan Schneidenbach, she's our permit supervisor in our building division. Next is a 10-year employee, Miss Amanda Hartley. She's an assistant service planner with our electric department. We'll go on to our 15-year employees. Joseph Denham, he's an electric lineman. Mr. Denny Workman, he works in our warehouse department.
You get it?
One more. celebrating 50 years of marriage this year, so congratulations. Our 20-year employee, Mr. James Ricketson, Battalion Chief in our Fire Department. And our 25-year employee, there was a typo on the agenda, it said 25-year employee, 25-year employee, Ms. Sherry Stafford with the Finance Department. Congratulations.
Thank you all. I hope there'll be many more years of service to Leesburg. You're important to us. We are now going to discuss the downtown master plan.
All right, well, I think everybody's kind of up to speed where this is at. So we've been at the downtown planning phase since July-ish or June, and Blake's been all over the city, talked to lots of different folks, and so here's your report. Hopefully, if you all approve the report, we've got it scheduled on the consent agenda to adopt. However, if you guys want to make some changes or whatever, we can do that as well, so you can go either way, but Blake is the best one to give you the report. So without further ado, Blake Drury.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Blake Drury. I'm with GAI Consultants, 618 East South Street in Orlando. And as Al said, we have been working on this plan for almost a year. We finished up kind of the draft form of it back in December, right before the holidays, and made a presentation a couple weeks ago to downtown interested stakeholders on a Saturday morning, and this is generally the same presentation that we talked through. I want to talk to you about tonight a couple of things kind of at a high level, and then maybe some more detailed things that I think are important to the plan. I want to talk about the process we went through, the sort of things that we found, and the two big parts of the plan, one of which is the building blocks that describe kind of goals and outcomes, and then specific projects that we think activate those building blocks to create a better downtown. And if you will, I can sort of get through this in a few minutes, and then if you have questions, we can talk at that point. As we started this process, when we look at Leesburg and compare it to other similar situated cities within the region and within the country, what we see is that Leesburg's not alone. There are lots of other cities that have a similar sort of challenge, and that challenge is that, you know, we all understand that we can, you know, pick this up, and if I was good enough while I was talking here, I could probably order whatever it is that I wanted through whatever app that I wanted to use and have it delivered sometimes, maybe even before I got home. And in that sort of disruptive technology has really changed the way that commercial areas and downtowns in particular, especially small downtowns, the way that they operate. And the thing that we notice as we do this throughout the state and in the Southeast is that successful small towns, the ones that don't have a county seat and the things that go along with that, with the lawyers' offices and the other sorts of things, the small downtowns have repositioned themselves to be places that are built on face-to-face experiences. And so if we take that as the challenge that we have to address with the coming iteration of growth in downtown, it leads us in a direction that I think is really exciting, because some of the things that are going on in downtown are actually leading in that direction. So downtowns have changed from a place for work, a place to, you know, buy your day-to-day needs, a place where you you go to office or to shop, into places of leisure. And that's a sort of mega trend that we're operating within. And if we understand that the goal of downtown Leesburg in sort of a big frame is to compete for people's leisure dollar, then that frames the kinds of things that we think we might want to do downtown. Here's some examples of some other places, small towns within a bigger metropolitan region throughout the Southeast that have done this, have repositioned themselves. From the top right in Collierville, which is outside of Memphis, or Cornelius outside of Charlotte, Roswell or Smyrna outside of Atlanta, and Roswell outside of Atlanta. You can see that the places that the uses that they have pursued and have created there, the way that they have addressed their public realm, the sorts of spaces that they have set up, are all meant to deliver food and fun and arts and culture and experience. And that, in terms of a trend, is something that I think is extremely important to understand here in Leesburg. There's also 5 or 6 other important things that we had to get our arms around as we're creating this plan. You know, there's sort of natural business cycle of tenant and ownership changes that happen in downtown, and understanding which of those are long-term and which of those are cyclical is important. Recognizing the expansion of Beacon College downtown, I think, is an important element of our planning. Understanding what the continued growth of the villages means for downtown in terms of both a potential market as well as a potential competitor to downtown. What to do and how to react and relate to investments in Venetian Gardens Park and the way that part of downtown that part of the city works with downtown. Understanding the effects of the planning for a new pool on Pine Street and the opportunities that might come along with that. And then to the west or to the east of downtown, recognizing and kind of understanding the implications of the growth and expansion of the hospital in that location. So all of these are things that are influencing how we went about understanding and learning about downtown. As we look at, these are some of the sorts of things that we sort of sifted through, where we understand, and I'll point to this one back here, as we understand sort of downtown and the length of Main Street and 441 and Dixie, and the way that folks kind of come to downtown, the major gateways, where they go when they're in downtown. One of the things that we talked about a lot through this process is Main Street in its sort of orange to library sort of configuration. That's as intact of a Main Street as you'll find in the Central Florida region. It's about a quarter mile long, which means it takes 5 minutes or so for folks to walk from one end to the other. That's about as long as small town main streets get in one direction. The next thing you have to think about is, how do you grow off of that? How do you turn into a downtown district rather than kind of a single act Main Street? We looked at the underlying land use and zoning to make sure that those conditions were good for the growth of downtown. We looked at public spaces and buildings and landscape and streets, as we'll talk about, to understand kind of what is it that is creating this place that we know and love as downtown Leesburg. When we did community meetings, we did our best to do things that were engaging, to get people talking, and part of the process is not only helping to educate us about what's going on downtown, but also starting to build some advocates for the plan, also trying to get folks to come and talk to each other as they engage in this planning effort. And as we did that, there were a whole series of topics that came up. And this isn't intended for you all to read every single one of these bullet items. You get extra points if you do. But from sort of this kind of word salad up here, we really see that there's 4 things that people were sort of really focused on. One is about how we get more people here on a regular basis, how we create a place that can market those experiences, how we develop our identity as a place, and then how we deal with our front doors and our linkages to the neighborhoods and places around us. So you can see that that's about increasing activity. It's about experience versus commerce. It's about increasing competitiveness in the market and connecting to the wider community. Now those ideas are important because those form, as I said, we've got 2 important pieces to the plan. One are the building blocks that start to lay out the key goals and outcomes for the plan. So the first one is about how we get a more populated and regularly active downtown. So how we get more people living in downtown and in the neighborhoods nearby downtown is important, and how we expand the type and scale of the activities that go on there. Creating, as a second building block, creating a place that is really built on marketing and delivering experiences. So developing special places, unique destinations, all geared toward a great experience. A lot of that comes from the public realm and how we activate the public realm. Developing an identity so that everyone understands and is drawn to the interesting things that can happen and are happening downtown, and that identity that can build on itself and be consistent throughout the market that you're within. And finally, renewed focus on our front doors and linkages to have downtown be better connected to regional entrances, to its local neighborhoods, and to its people. So those are the building blocks. As we think about a series of plans and activities and projects, we've gone through sort of a planning exercise of trying to list out a whole series of things, from public realm improvements, streets, trails, streetscapes, downtown gateway activities, all the way to potential development activities and grant program improvements that you'll see in there. We've identified those on the map, and for a few minutes I just want to go into maybe a little bit of detail about some of the ones that we think are either key or important to creating or activating those building blocks that we've talked about. I think it's important to recognize when you look at a list like this and a map like this, we have gone through a prioritization effort, and we've said that if you had unlimited funds and the tolerance to be under construction everywhere all at once, you could do everything. However, we understand that that's not the world that we live in, so there's a prioritization of things that you should do, we feel like you should consider now, because they're maybe the most important immediate opportunities, things that you ought to do soon. So maybe once those first few projects are in the ground, you should consider those. And then things that we call due later. People get so wrapped around the axle about, is this a 10-year project or a 12-year project, or year 10 project or year 12? Well, that's later. That's not right now. And some of these you'll see it's important to have on the books, even though we don't think they're immediate projects, because say a grant opportunity comes up and FDOT says, you know, we have some money to look at the east end of Main Street. Well, in the plan, we've got an idea about what the east end of Main Street could look like, So you can point to it and say, well, we have something in our plan. Let's go study that. So it's important to recognize that those things are in the plan for specific purposes. So the first kind of key thing that we want to focus on is the idea that if we're focusing on gateways and linkages, we have a vocabulary that started on the west end of Main Street. It's actually identifiable. It's actually consistent with, the sort of overall brand of downtown. However, it doesn't happen in very many places. And if we go back to the map, we've identified some places on 441 and Dixie that we think are candidates for a similar sort of gateway investment. And we actually think those are important things to do now to set out the stakes to say, this is downtown, welcome to downtown, here's the experience that you're going to get. Another thing that we looked at is the experience of someone coming to downtown, what the parking is like. So we've identified, the major locations of public parking. We haven't identified all the on-street parking, which provides an important but slightly different purpose. And when we look at sort of the walkshed of those ideas, those places, the parking locations, the places that you can get to within an easy walk of that, what you see is that in the southwest part of downtown, there is a gap in parking where there is parking. Some of it's private, some of it's public. It's hard to tell which is which. It's also fairly inefficient, and one of the things that we've identified is taking this public block, working with the street, with some of the public works facility here, and working this into a more efficient area of parking to fill that parking gap that we've identified. And that, I think, is a fairly a piece of fairly low-hanging fruit that can be grabbed. As we think about kind of the core of downtown, so in this diagram, this is Main Street, this is Market Street, we're right here, and City Hall North is this way. One of the things that we've seen is that we talked about Main Street and sort of growing beyond Main Street. What's the next iteration? We really feel like there's an opportunity to create a parallel but maybe different experience on Market Street. We'll talk about that in a second. That maybe can be anchored by the town square out here in front of City Hall, and maybe a new space, plaza space, that can do dual use with some parking in front of the library, to start to create this space that really is kind of the core of the downtown experience. To get to that spot, as we think about our entries right now, think about 3rd Street out here. It's a fairly nondescript sort of entry. So Main Street's fantastic. The streetscape, the experience there, not so great of a lead-in. One of the things we think is that there's actually an opportunity within the space that we have there to do some rather nice streetscape as a lead-in to downtown, to set the stage for what's going to happen on Main Street. We think that there are opportunities because downtown has such small blocks, and one of the things that really jumped out at us as we started to do some diagramming of downtown is that the core has really small blocks, and that's fantastic for walkability because every corner is interesting. Every place that you can sort of go and turn, see something new, all of those create really interesting spaces. They create some difficulties for buildings. So in sort of other situations with larger blocks, you have alleys and other things that access service that give you spaces for, say, transformers and trash cans and dumpsters. Those are limited here in downtown. And if we're thinking about kind of how we create public space together with what we do in the public realm, and when I say public realm, I mean the space in the right-of-way that the city manages, but belongs to all of us when we're out there. The ways that we use that to create some activation and create some interest. You know, one of the ideas is perhaps that can be either closed all the way, maybe it can be in design. We can figure out that there's a little one-way street that could happen here. The sidewalk spaces get widened out. They get brought up to grade level, perhaps even that use across Main Street, so that if you're on Main Street, you actually have to go slightly up and over and down, so it reinforces the slow speed operation. And then these not only become places where you can maybe extend the sidewalk to create some outdoor dining or seating areas, but you also create some opportunities to maybe have some service yards and do those in a way that don't look like the back end of a building, but actually look like really proper sort of spaces that fit within a really neat urban place. And I think that's what we're trying to create with the goal of delivering experiences. As I talked about Market Street, one of the things that I think got a lot of traction in here, we kind of jokingly referred to it as the mullet, not like the fish that you use for bait, but like the haircut, like it's party in the front and or business in the front and party in the back. Just kind of as a sort of sideline way of saying it's different from Main Street. We need to create some experience that isn't trying to compete with Main Street, but actually is trying to maybe help it along and give it something different and maybe highlight the differences between it. So what we see here is an idea that, you know, sometimes these are called festival streets, sometimes they're called curbless streets. The idea is to be able to rebuild this at sidewalk grade, so out of a paver material like brick, so that in its regular daily use, it operates the way it does. But when you have events, not only big events, but maybe even small events, it can be closed, and it's actually, from an accessibility standpoint, a much better sort of place to have events, and becomes a real address for things that can happen downtown. At the other end of that, from where we're standing now, down at the library, you know, this is sort of the day-to-day or November or something look, but you know, this is what you get. You get a lot of parking. You get sort of a dead space on Main Street before you get to the library. We think there's opportunity maybe to create this as a place that can start to host some activity. So one of the things that came out in the planning about the town square is that lots of activities happen here. None of them are probably exactly right for what's going on there. It creates some maintenance issues over short and long term. Maybe there's another spot where we could do some of those events, and maybe actually that starts to grow what happens downtown, because everything's not collapsed into one spot. So if we're on Market Street looking toward the library, you know, one of the options says, you know, maybe we continue Market Street all the way through. Maybe we have some parking still associated with it, and maybe there's a plaza or some other sort of space here that can host some of those events. Maybe there's even like a shed, a really nice sort of shed building that could happen in it. You could foresee farmers markets or other sorts of events like that, even though day to day it's just sort of a parking space. So for a daily use, it might look like this. For a small event or for a large event, we think that this is, I think we said this is one of the sort of midterm do soon but not now sort of opportunities to really start to lay out some sort of an anchor to that eastern end of Main Street. So as we think about one of the sort of quiet opportunities that you have is the trail system that exists today. When people do surveys of home buyers in new communities, the number one thing, it used to be golf courses years ago, the number one thing that people want is walk and bike connectivity. They want trails. And you have trails, they're sort of forgotten, they're not necessarily used beyond sort of a niche. They also, the way that they're located, create this kind of threshold where to get into downtown, coming from the north and south, or even from the east, you have to cross one of these trails. And so what that does, we think, is this opportunity to not only create activity along the trail, but to create an opportunity to build identity through some art, some shade, some wayfinding. Perhaps we extend the trail space across the street at trail level, so you go up and over it. And as we think about it's not on that one. As we think about the new pool location, even extending the Magnolia Trail east to connect to the pool and actually potentially connect up to Main Street beyond, we think that's an opportunity, as we said, to make those connections to the surrounding neighborhoods. Thinking about another entry on 2nd Street from the south, when we looked at 3rd Street, it had a 40-foot right-of-way just like 2nd does. The difference with 2nd as a way into downtown from Dixie is that the city owns a good chunk of land all along 2nd Street. And so instead of being limited to 40 feet, we think there's opportunity to expand that a bit, potentially with the trail getting us south to Dixie, and actually create some of the same streetscape sort of elements that we were talking about on 3rd, but maybe with a little bit more elbow room because we could work that into the public space that's on the east side of it. We talked about the trail connection potentially to the pool and beyond. I think that's an important sort of way to start connecting out to the neighbors. And then that sort of longer term idea about Main Street, the lead in from the east, potentially are there ways to get landscape and crosswalks and maybe even some protected bike lanes. Remember, there's the Tav Lee Trail that is part of the county's trail system that's extending from Tavares west here to Leesburg. Getting that as a system element worked into something like this, I think is an opportunity, so that you potentially may have a protected bike facility running on the street. Again, identified because it's an important long-range idea, not necessarily completely fully worked out in terms of the details, but an important thing to have in the plan for points in the future. So that's not an exhaustive list of all of the projects that are included in the plan, but some that we think go a long way to executing the ideas in these building blocks. So I appreciate your time and attentiveness, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer.
Anything? Guess not. Guess you did such a great job.
Thank you very much.
Anything from the audience?
Cost.
Did you happen to break down? I know that your sheets of a million different lists had prices all over it.
They do. The project summary that's in the very back has a planning budget associated with each one of the projects. We have worked with the city manager to start to identify places that or sources of funds that can go to some of those projects. It's interesting that some of the smaller budget items can be funded through some programs that are already going. They just, need a project to be identified with. Some of the other ones may be some longer term, larger pots of money that multiple ones need to be addressed. But for instance, the budget that you put in a plan for a downtown gateway is about $275,000 or so. All the way up to obviously several million to rebuild Main Street, and there's a full range within that.
And Madam,
Yes.
when they finish.
Okay, yes.
I'm Dave Serdar, and you're talking about building an identity for the city, and you got to bring people here, and all the ideas are great, but in Orlando, where I've been in front of the mayor of Orlando, City Beautiful, they banned some green ideas, and they started in October 1st, and Gary W's Orange County there said, glad to see you again, Dave. You'll be surprised they're doing the same thing. They're following each other to build an identity. City Beautiful has bike paths all over, and there's bike paths here. And, I'm part of Keep Lake Beautiful, and we picked up trash on that road. And, there's a lot of ideas that, I think we need to build an identity for our kids' future, to bring people here, to make it safer. Because in my ballpark, not many people come down here. And my brother, who is a villager, we want to bring these people in. And I know that Turner's restaurant over here has gone green in the venues, it's doing some certain things. And, it's not like Congressman Daniel Webster doesn't know my ideas, or Representative Hayes,
Okay,
or Senator Benson.
those gentlemen are not in this
Right,
discussion.
in this city, but I feel other cities, and I've been to a few, are starting to take the lead. They're talking about it. And small steps, that's how you do things.
That's exactly what's happening here.
Right,
Thank you for your input.
thank you.
Yes,
If the city adopts something like this, there's a number of projects that are good. What is the time? How much, how long are we gonna take to do these different projects if it was voted on by the city to do it?
this is going to take a while, but what we would do would be to take each of the projects and decide which ones will come next in order to impact the next set. So it's going to be years. We're going to, every few years, you're going to see a different plan coming out as far as what's next. So this isn't like Main Street. 30, 40 years ago, they talked about Main Street. And nothing was ever done until about 8 years ago when we finally said, that's it, let's do it. The same thing's going to happen here. We don't want to borrow money. You know that I'm totally against borrowing money. We've got to be able to afford a lot of this. Or get grants. We've got county money grants. We've got Downtown Business Association. So there's grants. It's going to depend on the money and get what we can get done to bring people in. Okay?
You answered my question.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I can, you've brought up something that I think I may have left out, but I think it's in the text and everybody probably picked up on it, but I think it's an important piece to talk about, which is, I said the projects are important and the building blocks are important. The reason the building blocks are important is because 3 or 4 years from now, I guarantee somebody here will have a really great idea that may not have been in the plan. It may not have even been possible until some of the things that were in the plan happened.
Done.
And the building blocks are important because when a project like that comes up, you can compare it back and say, okay, we said we wanted to do these 4 things. How does this project do that? And maybe it addresses all of them. Maybe it actually goes against another one, and you have to have a discussion. But I think that's an important piece to not forget about the plan.
In other words, this is a living document. It's not out the first time and only time. This is going to be addressed on a consistent basis.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, I had a few questions. I noticed we didn't have a gateway for Dixie and East Main Street, which I feel should be a gateway. Not a lot of work has been implemented as planned past Canal Street. The city's building a $5 million swimming pool that is notated, but then out of the 25 projects of do later, do now, consider now, the Pine Street, New Pine Street is the only one that you identified, let the developer do. Being that the city is probably the major developer on the left side of Pine Street, why did you have developer and not, because the city has a right of way to extend Pine Street. So we've been working with downtown 30 years trying to get a plan. I know you said something about you looked at our zoning and for people and density. So that's my concern. I think the gentleman kind of pointed on it. Until we get people downtown, we can have all the beautiful streetscapes, we can have all this, but until we develop a plan to encourage developers to build multifamily, build housing downtown, it's still gonna create an issue for businesses to survive, restaurants to stay open past 5 o'clock. Other you got a bar and maybe a restaurant that people come get drunk at, but other than that, you're not going to reach out to the other part of our city to get people to come downtown. I don't think we've done enough to go to some entryway, and even some of the 2nd Street where we talk about parking. So on your 2nd Street, we're either third, one of them, we're eliminating parking to do shades. So and then we'll get in the next 6 months, people coming here and says, I have a place to park. Right. So I think when we're identifying nice streetscapes and we're eliminating parking, we have to identify more parking. And I think if we're going to do that, we got to be genuine and say the city is now going to eliminate this. Now we got to go spend $80,000, $100,000 on a lot to get some more parking spots. So that's really my concern. And I've said it. You look at other downtowns. We talk about the spacing and the blockage. Leesburg has buildings, unlike if you walk down Mount Dora where you got restaurants that are accommodating people to be there. So we're in a unique position. So for me, it's kind of, and I already expressed to Al, so he already knows, so it's not anything new to him. But I thought we would have went past Canal Street where there's some open land and other opportunities to get people downtown so that people can actually walk when they get off work. But I think just to put bricks and a place to come party on Market Street without people coming, it's going to be one weekend downtown. So I think that's kind of been what we've been missing in the last 30 years, from a one-way to doing this, to streetscape. People buy buildings. I mean, are we addressing the building code of our fire system, grants for people who have buildings that can't expand? So for me, I think that we got to be realistic. I think that's the hindrance. That's hindering our downtown from moving forward. So before I spend $3 million on the road, I would like to implement something that's going to be realistic for people to actually invest in these buildings to get people downtown. So that, I thought we were going to have a little more of that. And of course, I am very disappointed we didn't go more across Canal Street, because I think you're stopping at Canal, and I think you're really showing, we've been saying for the last 30 years that once you hit Canal Street, it divides our downtown.
So there's a lot.
There's a lot in that. I dropped all that on you because I just want you to think about it. You don't have to discuss it all night, but that's kind of.
I think we're actually maybe closer than it may seem on some of these things. Okay. So one of the things about Canal Street that we looked at was, yeah, it is a barrier, not only sort of mentally but physically, right? Getting some sort of activity on the other side, like the pool, and that we weren't involved in whether or not that's the right location for the pool, but for downtown, getting some activity on the other side is an important start. You'll see all the buildings up here in yellow are places where we identified potential redevelopment and in a lot of cases new development in spots downtown. And some of those were actually, I think the kind of Pine Street intersection, and trying to create some energy that happens here that can build off of what may be happening with the hospital together with downtown. I think that came actually from some comments that maybe you had made to Al as identifying an opportunity. When we say it's a developer project, we were very weary about trying to look at, for instance, the trailer park, the former trailer park right up here, and say, you know, we think this is a due soon project. I don't know what the timing of the landowners sort of issues are. What I think all can agree on is that if we could get people living in every one of these yellow spots that we've identified here, downtown will be a lot better. Downtown would be much better if we can, you know, when we say we want to figure out how to get more people here more often to stay longer, well, the way to do all three of those is to get people living here.
Right.
One of the things we identified, and I'm glad you brought up the grants, because that was something that we added based on comments just like this, was to expand what's eligible under the FSL grant. So the FSL grant, signs, facades, landscapes, it's working. You can see where it's happened. You have buildings downtown that I think we've all coalesced into an idea that says we'd like to get upstairs residential as much as we can. We'd like to get people living in these buildings. However, there are structural things, fire code things, just building configuration things.
So
like
you looked at that?
We did look at that, and what we've advocated is to be able to expand what's eligible under the FSL grant to say that interior improvements that allow for upper floor residential or that allow for ADA accessibility upgrades, which is another thing that's sort of bringing some of these buildings down, that those we're recommending should be made eligible for that grant program. Because I think it's difficult for us. We don't want to be in a situation of saying, yeah, we ought to have upper floor residential everywhere, without understanding that there are some real hindrances to doing that, and to be able to give somebody an option for how the city can help reach a goal that we have for downtown. The last one, and we can have a conversation and agree or disagree on Main Street and the Gateway at Dixie and East Main. Our feeling on that, because among our team, we had discussion about it. Our feeling on that was it's such a distance, and the kind of industrial nature that happens between that gateway and even Canal means that you announce downtown all the way down there, and you've got to drive through a mile of stuff before you get to, where we feel like we were actually making kind of a dent in defining downtown. So maybe that's something we put in there because we want to recognize that is a gateway to downtown, but put it in a longer term sort of proposition because, we don't know fully, what the hospital's future growth is. They're pushing to the north to Main Street. Their growth may change the character of that, and we may want to, bring them into downtown by putting that gateway a little further on. So that's kind of the conversation that we had and why it wasn't included in the plan. But I think that hopefully we can understand at least what we were thinking about.
Buy a sign. We can buy a nice sign. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else? You want to go ahead tonight, or?
It's on the consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you. It's very
Thank you very
clear to
much.
me that you really did study this city and to see what was going on, so I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got one more presentation. Is Art here? Please come up. This is for the First Baptist Church of Leesburg.
We're gonna fire a mail person. They keep delivering all my mail. Christmas I had 3 boxes.
Okay, can you go big screen with that? I've got a thumb drive.
Trade is my mail. They ain't give me no gifts. I saw it on TV. This one Dan there trading over there.
The show's got to do it tomorrow.
The price of
All right, the last 3 years I've really spent with the City of Fruitland Park developing. We had 100 acres up in Village Park that we developed, and we took away some really good lessons with this. We learned about synergistic development. This is a shot of our First Baptist of our Village Park campus. We sold 65 acres to a retirement community that does assisted living, and then we have 4 commercial lots, and we built a kind of a unified development. We're trying to do the same thing with the downtown. If you go down to the next thing. This is a yellow line. We spent the last couple of years acquiring a couple of key pieces of property. We acquired the big 2-story house over there by the Christian Science. We got the Christian Science, and then we bought the old car lot there on 27. So basically, we now have everything contiguous, Main Street back here to some of the stuff on Center Street, and they're on 13th Street. The next slide, please. What we would like to do, what we're recommending to the city, we would like to become basically the anchor tenant for the downtown, the gateway when you come in. We have the largest piece of property until you get, I believe, until you get to Beacon College, but all the way until you get to Beacon College on Main Street, we have the largest piece of property. We're in the process of selling the Main Street property that we had on Main Street. We will not be across there anymore. We're concentrating everything right here. But basically, we hired I'm working on another project. I brought in a designer from California to say, okay, we really want to meld into we want to be like a kind of the anchor as you come into Leesburg. And of course, you know, our passion for the city. And basically, because we had some internal problems that we had with the growth of the school and also with our parking, now that we have all this unified property, we can do a unified plan. So this is what we're recommending tonight. And we're just, for lack of a better word, calling it the Gateway District. But where you're seeing here, this is coming in from High Street, and we would like to do the same thing, what we're doing downtown. We'd like to do some development along 27, and we'd like to close 13th Street, have the city vacate it because we have some internal things. Next slide, please. That's a day shot of it. Wait, go right there, that's good. This what we'd like to do right here is a green that we'd like to build. We come in here, we'll have Disney speed parking. This is the school right here. This is the church back here. And this is our ministry center. We'd like to have a green like on college campuses, which is kind of a big assemblage area for people. So basically, it would be, we would redo all of the parking, and then we'd redo our connecting into 27 and also Main Street. Next slide. This is just another shot. This is kind of a drone shot of it. Again, there's the coming in there, and there's the green, so to speak, that ties in all of our properties. One of the reasons we'd like to vacate 13th is we'd like to build, for both the school and for the preschool, we'd like to have a loop drop off here. And then here in the church, we'd like to have a pavilion, a gathering pavilion right here. And then we want to redo the partnership that we have with the hospital here with the medical center. We'd like to redo that area there as far as access into the church campus. Basically, if you've ever been to Rollins College, we'd like to very much look like that where you're driving up and you're coming onto a campus. Okay, next slide. This is another shot. This is showing 13th Street is currently right here. We probably would redo that a little bit and redo the access parking to come in here and have parking come all the way along the back of the church there. I don't know that we're going to put buildings in here. That was a artistic conception, but we do want to make First Baptist more basically inviting the people from the city come in there, and we're going to look at redoing it. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is looking from the top shot satellite view. We would redo all of this parking right here, do Disney speed parking in here. And this is right here, we've kind of been following what you've been talking about on the roundabouts for the last couple of years, waiting to find out what you guys are going to do about it. And I ask Al every once in a while. But basically, if you do the roundabouts, we see this as a potential roundabout here because we know that Center Street is probably not your spot for that due to the substations there. So now we've got, what we're planning on doing is doing three things that we're proposing is the closing, the vacating of 13th Street right here. We're planning on building the new school building right here where the Christian Science is. We have had some conversations with Mr. Polk about his property here, but and he's open to selling it to us. We're just talking about it. But we would do parking there, and then right up here we want to do some development on 27. So basically that's our request. Questions?
What impact would closing 13 have on Melon Patch Theater?
None, because they have all the access that they're able to get from both High Street and also from Center Street and also from 13th Street coming in from the north side. Yeah. Plus also we share parking with Melon Patch. We let them park when they have events, and we park there too on Sundays. We have a shared thing with them. But where they're at right there, Melon Patch is right there, so it's really, people don't come 13th Street to come down to Melon Patch.
Yes, they do.
I don't think it's very many.
Oh, there is.
Not very many.
Yes, there is.
Well,
so I'm concerned about the effect this is going to have on Melon Patch.
Well, Melon Patch is every so often type thing, but there's plenty of access to Melon Patch from Center Street and from High Street and from 13th Street. We'd be glad to do a traffic study to be able to do that, but when you have something that we're a 7-day-a-week operation here in Melon Patches every so often, and actually we're going to improve parking for Melon Patch because they would have parking right here too. So there would be some benefit for them.
Now, you have parking there. What about the houses that are across the street from Melon Patch?
Those, we're going to demo those.
Okay. You've already taken over ownership of those?
Yes, we own all of that. We purchased that last year. All of this right here now we own all the way to Bill Polk's property. That's why we're talking to Bill Polk is that piece right there. For the school, we're trying to keep everything separate, and this is why we want to build a center spot here. That would be the school, that would be the ministry center, and then there's the church activities there.
What are you planning on doing on Main Street itself with the buildings there?
Well, Main Street, as you know, we have all the things that we do. This is like the, right in there is a tire store, that kind of stuff. We've looked at the possibility of these buildings here, but it's way too expensive for us to square off to purchase those, even if they would want to sell them. So basically what we would do is, this is our partnership we do with the LRMC, with the medical center. We would move, all this would become parking through here, where people come off Main Street, parking here. We're still playing with what may happen here. This is not a total here, but the big thing is we're moving all of our parking here off of 27 and getting people in and out there through a couple of exits. Now we have significant problems parking on Sundays. What we did, we were kind of surprised. We weren't expecting this. Our village campus has grown like crazy. So we just purchased 40 acres south of town. There was a church that was having some challenges. So we purchased 40 acres there that used to be South Point Baptist. And so some of our members are going there. But even with having some of the people go to the South Campus, many people go on the village campuses, because we're really committed to the city of Leesburg. The last 3 years I've been working on the Village Park development. The next 3 years I really want to work on this thing for the city of Leesburg. And we want to make this something that is really a jewel. And we'd like to have maybe potentially some events that could be more open events that could be there. But we just have not had the parking to be able to bring people in. So this is probably a 3-year plan for us to be able to do that.
So I like the plan in general. It's obviously be a big upgrade for the area, and it looks like you're talking about spending quite a bit of money. My only concern, what I'm going to want to see, if we were to get to the point where we're talking about actually approving closing down 13th Street,
sure,
is specific uses of buildings facing Main Street.
Sure. Okay, I can answer that, I think, pretty quickly.
Okay.
Okay. The partnership we do with LRMC, that's never going to move.
Right.
Right in here, these buildings, I don't think we're going to put in here just because we're going to need the parking. I think we're going to need parking. So basically on Main Street, nothing will change. We've got 3 buildings here, and those will stay the same usage. They will still be used for the ministries. We're not going to change anything there.
I think for me, Pastor Hart, with the buildings on Main, where I think sometimes they give away food.
Yes.
People kind of overflow into Main Street, across Main Street.
Yes.
Is there anything we can do about once you, I mean, it's good to beautify, but if you got a Saturday where everybody's across the street and everybody just park all by Napa and then walk across the street, and I think, you know, we're saying we're going to upgrade Main Street, but that's not very much upgrade when everybody's outside.
I agree, John, Pastor John, and I think that you guys will be happy about this. Go back to the second slide, if you would. Excuse me, third slide. Okay, what we're planning on doing is this is going to be right up here is where you're talking about up here on Main Street, where it's such a problem. And I agree, it's a huge problem because we did have the pregnancy center there and we had the Main Street. So we brought the pregnancy center interior, so there's an interior thing, so we got some of that off of Main Street to lessen some of the burden there. So the operation we have the food there, we're going to actually move it up here to another building that we're going to spend about $700,000 redoing the old comics thing or whatever. Then we want to, here we might do commercial development, maybe coffee houses or something that we think will tie into the church and to the community, but we probably want to start doing commercial development here. We've done it with the Village Park development and it's worked out really well. And so we think that that will help our problem on Main Street because the people would be coming in here. We've got 100 parking spots right here behind here. You know where I'm talking about, between the men's residence right there and the old comic store? That's about 100 parking spots. And we're going to try, that will take all of that off of Main Street and bring it off. They would have to turn right into 27 and then come back out, turn there. Yeah, one thing you got to understand, we are limited on space. We're doing the very best we can with the space that we have. And so this is, we feel like the best plan that we can do. But, we'd like to do a traffic study because we feel like looking at it, we own all the property on both sides. Most of the traffic that I see out there is the school and the preschool during the day. If you remember when we first mentioned this about 2 years ago, Bill Polk was against it. About a year ago, I met with Bill. I said, Bill, let's talk about this. And I believe that Bill's totally in favor of this now. The problem that Bill's concerned about was all of the big dump trucks and stuff. And I said, those dump trucks are not coming up 13th Street. They're all coming down Center Street. So I think that won't be a problem. But basically, for us to develop the downtown campus, we really need to vacate the 13th because it just cuts through there. We need to absorb that and have the pavilion, and I think that'll be a much overall improvement for the gateway coming into the city.
Art, you mentioned the parking arrangement with Melon Patch. Do they support this?
You know what? I haven't asked them. They came to us, 2 years ago when they wanted to have alcohol, and we were obviously Baptist Church right by there. And I felt like with them, even though I don't personally agree with alcohol, I don't want to. If they want to sell beer and wine or whatever, and I told them that I would support it, and I told Al I would support it. If that's what they want to do, they can do that. Because I want them to be able to do their operation. I would say to them, they need to say the same thing to us. We need to be able to do our operation as well. We try to be a good neighbor with everybody we have there, but since we've bought all the property now, we really are the neighbor, and it's just right now really primarily the Jewish synagogue and the Melon Patch. So
I think it looks great.
Thank you.
You got my vote.
I just like to just add, maybe nobody's gonna say it, but I was against it then, and I think the homeless shelter is probably not the best location downtown. My concern will be, are you planning on expanding that, or is this where we're at? Okay.
No.
All right.
I would say, Pastor John, this is where our interests are probably aligned because of our school and our preschool. We really, everybody thinks we just open up the door to everybody homeless. We're not. We are really hard line with the homeless. Honestly, we are. Yeah. They can come down 27 and go there and eat, but we shelter every night. There's 100 homeless people sleeping on our campus with the Samaritan Inn, with the with the women's shelter, the men's shelter. The other thing I would remind, because a lot of you guys weren't on the commission, but when we started acquiring these properties, a lot of these were very problematic properties for the city. There were crack houses. There was a lot of unsavory things that happened in there in the Big Bass Motel. And we've done a major upgrade to that whole thing. And we just want to continue it, but we feel like it will help the city when you come in there and you can see this coming into Main Street. We think it'll be a vast improvement. But we're
Any
not
questions
expanding
from the
anything else.
audience? Yes.
I actually do have one question.
Yes.
Art. So, right off the bat, I'm for the 13th Street just because of the safety for the kids crossing that street.
Right.
But second, the one question I do have is, right now, the parking area that you've got right there that's facing us, that's kind of a athletic field, if you will. Do you have anything in mind for the kids at that point for the school?
There's two things we're looking at. One is we're redoing the area. There's the area over there by Bill Polk's, that property there. We're probably going to build a gym. There's going to be a lot more indoor stuff. We also have 20 acres south of town. We're evaluating and moving our athletic stuff down there. But there's going to be some loss for the school for play area, but we have to. The parking is a huge, it's a huge problem on Sundays for us. So we've got to adjust it. But again, I want to emphasize, because of the success we've had with the Village Park campus, it became very evident to me to make downtown, we need to do the same thing to do an overall development. So that's what we're recommending.
Okay, thank you very
Yes.
much. Okay, we're going to be moving into public comments. This time is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
David Serdar, Fruitland Park, Florida. Hello, Commissioners. You know, it's a beautiful day, but, it's Earth Day coming up April 22nd. 2020 will be the 50th Earth Day coming up. The First Baptist Church, I've been to Fruitland Park, and Shannon Back, the Village Park campus pastor, and Cornerstone Church, right over here on West Main Street, Pastor Tony. We talk about the kids' future. And, you're talking about bringing people down here. City of Orlando, I'm telling you, has got ideas that you can learn from other cities. And, it's not like I haven't tried. I've been everywhere. And people are commending me in some offices. And other people, well, they don't realize that actually, I got it right here. Where did I put it? I'm more logical than people think. And I see things a little different than other people. And I'm worried about the future. And I ran into a NASA scientist out in the villages where he told us our mother rock's already gone. So we can build all we want, but if we don't take care of our kids' future, what good is building? And, Governor DeSantis is open-minded to the climate change issue, right here in the paper. And, I'm worried about health care. I go to health care meetings, in between Lake County and Sumter County Commission meetings. And I know this is a city. This is a beautiful city. I love this city. It's so cute. It's got a courtyard. But, building all this stuff, you can't build it unless the people come. And the people can't come unless the kids grow up and want to come here. And you can be leaders. And dreams without action is pure fantasy. And you can't believe the different people that I've got right here. Well, here it is. Actually, I'm highly logical, which allows me to look past extraneous detail and perceive clearly that which others overlook. And that's a quote off of, I used to work at Leesburg High School, off a librarian that wrote that. I call her a librarian. She's a resource manager, it's called. And she's an author. And you have the arts over here. And the Mellencamp players, they've got, right here, I've got all the songs for St. Patty's Day. I've met the executive director over there. He's a great guy. He was in a parade. And
Did you have
they had
something
the king in
for
your
us?
parade.
Did you have something you wanted us to think about or
Well,
address?
I'd like to ban, we took a vote in Tavares abandoning plastic straws.
And we're not, so
Well, no problem. You can not worry about our kids' future, and you can expect people to not show up. But if you go green with some ideas,
How much plastic do you have in that binder right there?
In that bite, there's so much plastic you can't
Right.
believe.
So-
Plastic doesn't go away.
It don't. Neither does straws.
I also have a Bible signed by the Groveland Massacre families. And God bless the pastor here that gave the speech. And they liked my ideas. I mentioned the Groveland 4 ideas. Nessa Parker's, Hebert signed my Bible. She insisted on doing
Sir,
it.
start wrapping it up. 'cause
Okay,
your
well,
time is
what I'm
up.
saying is, you know, you can do all you want, but if we don't build for our future, you know, you can build all you want, but people have to come, people have to be here. And you can say all you want, but I worry about the future.
I do too. Thank you.
I do
Thank
too.
you very
Thank
much.
you. I got it. I'm a certified commercial cleaner. I pick it up.
Thank you,
Only
sir.
trash litters in my.
Like you.
I'm not keep waiting for you to sort out.
It's too late, the last 2 weeks.
80% of what we mix up by the pipe van. Every bottle of beer. I got that idea out there in front of the governor.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you need my name and
Yes,
address?
please.
Okay. Tracy Samples, 605 West Magnolia Street, Leesburg. Good evening, Mayor Dennison, City Commissioners, and City Manager Minier. Thank you, sorry, I knew what I was gonna say. I am the current president of the Downtown Leesburg Business Association. For your information, let me just say downtown in our bylaws, downtown is defined as beginning at US Highway 27 on the west and running to Lake Street on the east, and the north boundary located at US Highway 441 running south to Dixie Avenue. For your information again, the mission of the DLBA is to foster interest in and awareness of the diversity of downtown Leesburg and to promote the success of individual business members operating there through publicity, creative marketing, and exciting public events and experiences, such as our Let the Shenanigans Begin promotion that we're currently doing, designed to attract new and repeat visitors to our vibrant and historic downtown. On behalf of the board and our members, I'd like to thank the City of Leesburg for its investment in downtown and support your Downtown Master Plan initiative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, thank you. We're going to move ahead to our consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commissioner staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the item from the consent agenda. Vote on remaining items with one roll call vote. Discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items you wish to pull tonight?
C3 and C5.
Okay, C3 and C5.
C4.
C4. Anything else? Commissioner?
No.
Could we have a motion to approve all the other items?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Mayor Dennison.
Yes. Okay, C3, would somebody like to introduce, please?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Boys and Girls Club of Central Florida and providing an effective date.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
The only thing I wanted to bring up on this, everybody knows I'm pro Boys and Girls Club. I mentioned it when we talked about this site. I just don't understand why we're building 10,000 square feet. I mean, next to a 14,000 square foot gymnasium. I just want to get that on the record. I mean, I just, I mentioned it before that the possibility maybe 5,000 square foot as the community was so divided on where to put the teen center, but I just can't. And I think somewhere in here I read that the site only supports 7,500. I saw that somewhere in here.
I seem to remember that being discussed during those meetings in February.
So, I mean, I just throw that out for discussion. I just, we're talking about 24,000 square feet right there. I just seem like a 5,000 to 7,500 in conjunction with the gym makes more sense to me. So that's all I had.
Well, I would just say, I think the Boys and Girls Club should be the one that kind of tells us that that's going to be big enough for 7,500 is too small. They're going to be the one that have to operate it and run it. So I would like to hear back from them on what they think the size should be. My only question with that is on number, I think it was about the gymnasium and talked about the usage. And I mean, we already have the city using it. We have the people from the community can rent it. So who determines that the Boys and Girls say, I want to use the gym? Does that kick the rest of the city out? Or do we going to have staff trying to determine who can use it on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock? So, I mean, I think if we building a size building, I don't think they should kick the rest of the city out to use the gymnasium. So that was the only question. Then the other point is that they get large donation, they get naming rights of the facility. Does that include the 500,000? That's something extra.
The purpose of the MOU is just to start a foundation of where we're going to start. On the 10,000 square feet, I think that's going to be parametered by how much space we have, what the budget is, and what the needs are. So I can see it being as big as 10,000 if it fits, and if it's in our budget numbers, I can see us start trimming it back if we need to. So I think that's, again, a starting point. And as far as use at the gym, I think actually the use of the gym also bleeds into the size getting to be a little bit smaller. But yeah, they'll have some use of the gym, and that'll be for us to talk about and determine, and that'll be something that Travis and the staff.
But that's not going to stop what the city's already doing, because we got a lot of stuff going on with the city program.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay.
Maybe I was getting ahead of myself. I just want to get that out there.
Well, I think it's the wrong location. I'm not going to back up a month later. Nobody I know except the people who show up at that commission meeting thinks that's the right location, so my vote's not going to happen.
I would echo the on the 500, like the naming rights thing. I'm cool with them doing that, but that means more than 500,000 to the city for me. Not 500,000, and they raise some money for to help with something else and get to name the building.
Right.
Because 500 versus 2.5.
And that's the way I read the
Right,
MOU.
I did too, but now that you say that, I just want to make it clear that I'm on the same page with you
Because in
there.
Orlando, the guy at Dorton Restaurant guy gave, I think, $3 or $5 million for the biggest Boys and Girls Club. So I think that may tell us, hey, we're going to pay for everything, so put your name on it. But I don't want to say somebody gave us 500,000, so we don't have to give you 500,000. I think that should be extra. And that may pay for Mike's other 2,000 square foot. Like, okay. But
Anything else?
just discussionary point.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the audience? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Nope.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Dennison?
Yes. C4, would somebody like to introduce, please?
I introduce as we read the title one.
Excuse me. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rescinding resolution number 10,605, previously adopted, authorizing the city to enter into contracts with various entities to provide PACE financing for energy efficiency improvements to structures within the city and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you.
So I was the one that initially asked to remove it. I will say that I'm going to throw out one other thing, although I know that Mr. Jordan's here, so he may have some comments on this as well. There were a lot of concerns from both the property appraiser and the tax collector, who would be they're the ones that have to deal with any problems from this program. And as I learned some more, I think I had some similar concerns. However, I did get a call late this afternoon from the owner's rep for the one of the ALFs, who they're about 2 months out, and this is part of their financing program. So while we can't vote on this tonight, but wanted to kind of get the commission's opinion on it, would be to possibly instead bring it back for commercial use only for a 6-month time period that would then expire just to get the one project in so they could get it done, because they kind of worked with staff on doing this and indicated they're counting on the finance. But I don't know if that's going to screw things up for Mr. Jordan. So if he has some comments, we'd certainly welcome those as well.
Okay. You want to hear from Mr. Jordan first, or do you want to do the PACE and the nursing home? Okay. Mr. Jordan, if you'd like to come up and make the comments.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. I'm David Jordan, Lake County Tax Collector, 320 West Main Street, Tavares, Florida. The only thing I wanted to share basically is, first off and foremost, is I have clear respect and delineation of our separate delegated responsibilities from our structure of local government. And I'm only here, not just for myself, but also for Mr. Baker. He's at an event he couldn't attend. Is the two of us want to share, one is our opinion. Philosophically, we do not support the whole design of this program in general, just as a public statement to make. And it would take hours to explain the details of why it's not good for taxpayers in Lake County. And it's also, in my opinion and Mr. Baker's, a perversion of the definition of local government. It's taken the spirit of interlocal agreements and doing something that's become very injurious to a taxpayer. And that there's a lot of things about this program that local government has certain characteristics to it, in my experience of the last 20-some years of being a public administrator. And there's a lot of things that do not mirror what they do for the city of Leesburg, what they do for the city of Tavares, or the tax collector's office or county commission. So just in general, the thing has some interesting qualities to it that need to be vetted further. The ultimate concern I have is that it turns into an assessment. You'll hear people talk about it as a loan, then you'll hear assessment. Okay, which is it? Well, when it's an assessment, it's like a tax, although we all know legally a tax and assessment are different. But the end result is, between Cooney and I, we'll sell your house when you don't pay your taxes. So someone comes along and they get a loan to do these improvements, which can span everything except for replacing your footer in the walls of your house. Will wind up on your tax bill on the bottom, right by the fire assessment in the city of Leesburg. So if this was wide open and someone went in and did that, it puts them in other kinds of situations. Example, you do this loan or convert it into an assessment and put it on the tax roll. You move down the road and your solar panels don't work. Who are they calling? They're gonna call y'all, they're gonna call me or your Baker, okay? We don't have anything to do with the solar panels. If the trash doesn't get picked up in the county, we have a special assessment for that. The commissioner's gonna get a call, or Jeff Cole's gonna get a call, and there's a resolution to fixing it. So it brings in components that we're not seeing right now. The other things that can be impactful is that you get this loan or this assessment in your home. There are several lenders that will not finance someone, so you want to sell your home in 3 years after you put this assessment on it. The VA, the FHA, several of those lenders won't look at you. They'll walk. Now, and the other thing is, it's under the Uniform Method of Collection under Chapter 197, which is kind of the Bible of the tax collectors in each of the 67 counties, that ensures a due process of property collection, tax collection, real estate, intangible, and non-ad valorem, is to ensure there's a uniform method, and also the independence of offices, so that it's not any influence that does anything other than follow the rule of law. It's also interesting that the 4% discount that you get in November to pay your tax bill, this one is exempt. It gets 100%. And basically what it boils down to, I'll become the collector, the debt collector for a private investor. That's what it boils down to do improvements to your home. And these improvements they're nice things, they're things that are important, but it comes with a lot of other, as they say in the legislature, and all you've heard the expression, other unintended consequences come with this. I've followed this since 2007. My predecessor, Bob McKee, was on the Tax and Budget Reform Commission, and I was a staff person with him for 18 months around that project. One of the things that came up was an amendment that went on for a constitutional amendment in 2008 that I voted for it, in fact, was to not have improvements for storm hardening or alternative energy improvements to your home would not wind up being on your tax bill. In other words, if you pulled a permit and it was $25,000 worth of improvements to it, your Baker's not going to put that on your next tax bill, if you will, for assessment. Great idea, it made sense. People to fortify their homes and make them more energy efficient. Now today it has turned into how you get a loan and put it on your tax bill and you're not ad valorem. That's the long and short of it. So I'm no fan of it. I have reasonings that I can go further than articulating here, and I just wanted to respectfully caution the commission. At the end of the day, the Supreme Court of Florida, apparently, I haven't read the opinion thoroughly, and I'm not as skilled as Mr. Morrison, and I mean that respectfully. But it's been legitimized, and I'll just leave it at that. So as far as I'm concerned, at the end of the day, you do it, we sit down, I have to get an agreement with them, and then I'll have the agreement and collect it for you, because I'll do my job. But also, the other part of my job is watching out for people paying my salary. So that's pretty much in a nutshell.
How do you feel about the commercial end of it?
I think that kind of blows my mind a little bit. I see the particular circumstance that Commissioner Roebuck just announced here. That I could see that situation that might put a person in that's done all this funding, lined up all their capital to move forward, and then snatch the carpet out from under. But commercial, to me, is even a step worse, excluding the circumstance you might need to fix here, because it just gets them a better rate through a government tax-free loan, basically. So it's lucrative. When all these other things are sold as helping people out, this little old lady is 80 years old and lives on a fixed income, can't afford an air conditioner. She can get one now. You'll hear that story over and over and over. But then here we are, we're going to use government to help finance a private endeavor. I just philosophically have a problem with that. Jenkins isn't getting it. So, and they're paying their tax bills. Pretty stiff ones, but thank you for your contribution.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation.
Okay, Mr. Nermal?
Yes. Good afternoon, Devesh Nirmal. I'm with the Counterpoint Energy Solutions. We are the agency administrator for the Florida PACE Funding Agency. You all have my card. Our corporate address is 2600 Maitland Center Parkway, Suite 163. Our executive director is Sitting Commissioner of Sarasota County, Mike Moran, based out of Sarasota, Florida. So, you know, I think a lot of the facts, and just in full transparency, we actually had a chance to sit down with city staff, the tax collector, his staff last Monday, and certainly we'd be happy to provide the vantage point we have from many years of PACE being implemented in Florida based on the comments that he provided. But let me just say for introduction, we're just very surprised that this is being pulled after being on consent, unanimously supported 2 weeks ago, and that you're essentially, you know, depriving the property owners of the well-intended state legislature's movement on PACE in 2010. Fundamentally, if you look at the data, I have with you in front of you a presentation that we provided last Monday. Overwhelmingly, the improvements that have been going on with PACE have been wind resistance improvements, wind hardening. And if you think about our failed property insurance market back in the mid-2000s, there certainly was a reason why the state was really thinking, how can they solve this? Basically, it's not about whether it's private industry, it's about private capital is the only sort of capital that's going to be able to go to fix these properties, whether you want to put the new windows and doors on and get the insurance discount, which we see over and over, or make it more efficient, or fix that HVAC in summer that breaks, and all of a sudden you're like, do I do the credit card at a lender of last resort, 20% above? How do I get a HELOC set up when I need this thing replaced right away? This is just another option, and if you look at the data on what actually is underwritten you may have out of 100 projects that come in, maybe between 30 and 40% actually will use PACE. So it's only an option. So 67% of roughly approaching $1 billion on the data I have here, the overall funding in PACE, the state has been about $1 billion. 67% of that has been wind hardening, which I think is critical to this community, to a lot of communities that are impacted by storm events. So I guess the question is, if after all the work we did to provide the data and research, I've actually provided some additional research, national third-party research, which I'll leave behind. The mayor left you a couple copies. This is a very robust performing program. And the state in the initial statute set out the roles and responsibilities, the limitations on how far this can go because of all the issues that were brought up at that time of debate and also some of the issues that the task force brought up. This is a specific mission. It cannot cover everything in a home. It only can go to 20% of assessed value. So if your HVAC and your ductwork gets you to, you're only, and within that equity you have available, that's all you can cover, that's all we can do, right? And so I would just ask you to consider all of the movement. 200 local governments have already approved this in the state. The tax collector gets compensated for the tax roll service. But if you look at other types of public benefits that are done through special assessments, whether it's maybe we're going to bury the utility underground, those are non-voluntary assessments. This is voluntary. It's an option. And 34 states plus have found a compelling public benefit is why they decided to use this mechanism. And that compelling public benefit goes back to the hurricane, wind resistance mitigation, the energy pieces. And I would even say the comment came up about your downtown redevelopment. I hear from CRAs over and over, we're trying to get our downtown to be repositioned to attract more folks. How do we have facade grants, how do we get those owners the opportunity to use, to make improvements that will allow their tenants to want to move in and stay there and have comfortable working environments for customers to come in? That is certainly a role we can play. So why are those energy improvements, when they happen in the private sector, why are they important? Because at the end of the day, either you're spending your money on your core business or you're spending it on your energy utility bill. And the balance is, well, where's that balance? When things are left to fail and you don't have the cash, the CapEx to make those improvements, then that becomes a situation where you're spending more and more on that broken HC system on your bill when you could be spending that on your business. That's why it's a very pragmatic piece for commercial property owners. Fundamentally, our building stock is way behind the code, our current. The energy codes of where the Florida code is right now, we're not even close on our existing building stock, and that's why this is a good mechanism. But the wind hardening overarching has been the big piece here. There's no risk, cost, or liability to the city. So the way this has evolved in the state, local government, so that each special local government district is a local government defined through those statutes. It follows what 163.08 said, can actually implement this. I worked in, I'm from Tampa Bay, but I worked in Miami-Dade County back in 08 to 10. I was the first sustainability officer, and we were asked to look at PACE. We looked at how could we do that through municipal bonds and administering the program. It turned out that it was much more prudent to have several governments come together and create a district and bring on a third-party administrator and make it as efficient as possible. And if you talk to our board, made up of city and county commissioners and city council members in different parts of the state, they will tell you this is running to be for the public purpose. There's no incentive to create revenue for the district. The district is there to run and create the most effective and efficient and cost-effective solution for property owners. So I just ask you to consider the fact that this is just an anomaly to have it be on agenda, pass, and then be rescinded within 2 weeks. Love visiting your city nonetheless. We're all busy, but like you're going downtown, wish you luck on that upgrades. Happy to take any questions.
Well, I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, so you didn't have my vote 2 weeks ago. But my question is, you give someone the loan.
Assessment, yeah. Financing through an assessment.
And then, is it true or is it not true that the collecting of the money that you gave out is left up to the tax collector?
through the state statutes that govern that
Does
operation.
he collect it or does he not?
He collects it on behalf of the district, and we compensate him for that based on the fee that he asks for.
You don't want, okay, but I'm asking you a
Yeah.
question. Is he the one that's collecting the money that you loaned out?
Yes.
And bottom line?
And it's mandated to do so through the uniform collection method of collection.
Well, if we pass it.
Well, I would say that our council even has a broader interpretation that we have that right just with the fact that we are a local government already. But we, out of professional courtesy, we do these agreements with the cities and jurisdictions. In fact, the city just told us 2 weeks ago that they don't feel the need to sign an agreement. So there's a lot of interpretation on that. I'm not the lawyer on that, but I can tell you that there's plenty of intelligence around that. So.
And I have no doubt. I do have a problem with the fact that tax collector is going to be collecting your money. Nobody collects my money when my cars are out there. I have to eat that. So
it's a voluntary assessment. So I've chosen as a homeowner or a business to do this, and I'd like to repay it through the taxes. So I'm making that voluntary, and then we have to, through state statute, compensate Mr. Jordan on a rate that he feels is fair.
but if something happens, who are they going to be mad at?
Well, every line item or non-item has the actual name of the PACE program administrator. That's who they call. They don't call the city. Please look at the last page of this in consumer protections.
If they don't pay that back, what happens?
Well, what happens is you typically go to tax certificate sale in the first year, second
So
year.
they could lose their
tax
home
deed.
if they didn't pay that, correct?
The great thing is the data shows that that's not happening.
That's not my question.
Yeah.
They could lose their home if they didn't do that, and it would be auctioned off by the tax collector, and they'll tell their neighbors that the tax collector took that $5,000 air conditioner that got assessed onto their bill, and because they couldn't afford to pay that back, like they couldn't afford to pay the credit card, instead of having a charge off on the credit card, they're going to lose their house, which is paid for, because tax collector is going to throw it on the block. Is that true or not?
That's true if you want to make the connection that there's a causation there. I don't see there to be a
No, I'm
direct
asking a question. If it becomes an assessment, then it becomes on their tax bill. To me, it seems cut and dry that if something happens and they can't pay their assessment that's on their tax bill, then they're going to lose their house.
Along with the rest of the taxes.
But if it's on a credit card, they wouldn't lose their home and be on the streets, would they?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends what
No, they
happens
couldn't
with those other finance vehicles. What are the resolutions that those other companies have when you don't pay?
Well, a commercial contractor could put a lien on their house, and then when they sell their house, that he would get paid, but they couldn't be kicked out of their house.
So for us, I mean, we look at the data, right? This really hasn't happened. You can't attribute any foreclosures to any PACE assessments in Florida directly. And in fact, the data shows that the performance, when you talk about delinquency, people get out of the delinquency very quickly. They are maybe surprised initially about that first year of payment, but they catch up. Remember, they're saving money somewhere too. There's an insurance premium reduction. Most likely they're saving. The idea is that we only can permit products that meet certain standards of performance, whether it's your wind mitigation or your energy. And the idea is the term is set up over long term with the useful life to give you a competitive advantage over other financing that would require a quicker return on that initial amount, and thereby not making it as feasible to pay that back, actually. So I think it's an apples and oranges, and you have to look at the details on that piece. But certainly, this has all been vetted on how this works through the tax collection system, and we've got many agreements with tax collectors around the state. So thank you for the question.
And you get paid a pretty substantial interest on your part too as well, correct?
The interest rates range from, on the commercial side, in the mid-5s, on the residential side, all the way up to a little bit over 8, depending on the term. Those are fixed rates, they don't change. So.
Well, I have a couple questions. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I was one of the ones who called the city manager to put it back on to rescind it. I'm also in favor of Commissioner Roebuck's proposed, because I think commercial borrowers, they're more advanced and a little more savvy than elderly person who this may come to. And doing a little research, more research, is it factual that the PACE loan provider is not the contractor and instead direct to borrow to PACE approved contractor? So you have approved contract that you tell a borrower, I can't use my man, I got to use one of your approved contractors.
Not true. If a property owner has a favorite contractor, what they need to do is let one of the PACE program administrators know, and that contractor has to be vetted and trained as to how to represent PACE and and essentially, do they meet the minimum standards of performance that they can be allowed?
So then he becomes a PACE approved contract.
PACE approved, meaning they can, along with the credit card and alternative loans they offer, they can offer, we can do PACE, but if you want to use PACE, you got to get on the phone with the PACE capital provider, and they will go through a confirmed terms call with you. Not me, not a contractor selling the financing. That does not happen. That's why I think it's really important. These consumer protections, the fact that no money exchanges hands between the contractor and the homeowner, it's the PACE program administrator that pays the contractor directly, right? These are, you know, somebody could take you for a deposit and walk off the job. I'm just saying, the reality is that we have to abide through the public-private partnership by a higher standard.
Yeah, and I know you're trying to sell it.
I'm not trying to sell it.
Yeah,
I'm explaining what the
but
facts
that
are.
was my only question.
That's right, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, that was my only question, because I have about 3 more I want to get through real quick, because I don't want to waste a lot of time.
My bad.
It says PACE owners with PACE loans on their liens on their property can potentially be faced with having to pay the entire loan before being able to sell their property. So if I get a PACE loan for $10,000 for a solar system, HVAC, and I get a financial bind, I want to sell my house. And before I could sell my house, I got to pay that PACE lien back first before I can sell my house.
That depends on the mortgage company of the buyer.
Okay.
And in the case that is the case, whereas Mr. Jordan mentioned that solar projects cannot be taxed higher on valuation for assessed value, for fair market value, you certainly will be selling that home with that new AC, that new roof, and solar for a higher price. So what happens is typically a negotiation with the buyer and seller. Before closing, there's a realtor disclosure form that every broker is supposed to provide. Seller, buyer gets a copy. Hey, this home that you're looking at has a PACE assessment on it for these panels, for that new roof. That needs to be taken care of so we don't have a surprise at the closing table. That is part of the.
So they can't do it at the closing table, because most loans and liens are.
Yeah, no, it'll be taken care of, but it should not be a surprise where there's a lien on your property that you're surprised by, like a mechanical lien.
Well, that should be called title search, though, right?
Right, but I mean, this should happen before title. There should be a negotiation on how are we going to resolve this if it indeed needs to be paid off.
Okay, but do you understand the concern? I bought houses and you got 300 pages that you're trying to go through real quick. So can you imagine a 65 or 75-year-old lady who's already have senior homestead exemption, and here I come with a PACE loan to get my air conditioning fixed. Instead of me going to get a credit card, I get a salesperson who does this across the state, and I may not understand what they're selling me, because I may not understand all this lingo you're talking. And then we're going to be the ones where a lady comes in and calls me and says, I need to help pay my $10,000 AC. And your guys are gone. PACE administrator is not going to answer that phone call, or not going to deal with that old lady saying, what do I do about this 10?
Absolutely not true.
Okay. If you Google PACE Florida, you see all the issues. And so I know you said it hasn't been happening, but I Googled it, and I'm getting all this Sweeney law firm down in Miami who represents a lot of the PACE claims against your PACE organization. So, I hear you saying that nobody loses their house. But
I'm not saying nobody loses their house. I'm saying there are safeguards in place.
Okay. Well, I don't want to put anything on somebody's property that's may lose their house. So that's where my support goes, because I know people that I deal with, they have other issues.
I get it totally.
And the last thing I want to do is be the one that says I'm going to allow you to put a bill on your prop tax with the potential of you losing your house.
So I can guarantee you that if a confirmed terms call between a fixed elderly income citizen that is recorded by each of the PACE program administrators shows that there was some sort of deceit on the part of the PACE administrator, they're going to make that whole. The PACE administrators are going to make that whole, pay for that AC off. So I don't see how we can get to a place where you're saying that why would the PACE administrator, and first of all, we have to be responsive to dispute resolution, because at the end of the day, you all can opt out as you're choosing to do today, right? So there's a check on us from our board at the Florida PACE Funding Agency, and also at all the local governments that are members of the districts. So I would absolutely say that you would not have the recourse of going back to a confirmed term of call on a credit card decision where a contractor may have walked off the job or not provided the right service or completed the job completely. Where we are going to solve dispute resolution. If it's not done to the satisfaction, we get that contractor to do it, or else there will be ramifications. At the end of the day, that we don't regulate contractors. So when there are contractors misrepresenting the program, it's really about us shining a light on it and saying you can't represent PACE anymore. But if we don't have the ability to pull licenses away from folks. So the balance is we do our best to ensure the mission of the state statute. On the other side, we expect if there are issues with contractor quality, that those government authorities assigned to that resolve those. I mean, that's really where it comes down to. So, But ultimately, that we have protections in place to protect that individual you mentioned.
Does the PACE agency issue the bonds, like your agency directly, or is it the underlying companies?
Yeah, the PACE. I'll have Brian. Do you want to speak a bit on the bonding?
Yeah. Do you mind if I stand up? So just quickly, my name is Ryan Barkus. I am the program director for the Florida Development Finance Corporation. We issue bonds. We use the district as the way that we work with the tax collector to place the assessment. But I want to clear something up as far as some of the concerns really quick. We also do a review of each and every one of these projects. So what I mean by that is, if you guys aren't comfortable with the residential side, I understand it. You have an elderly population you're worried about, and if the confirmed terms call doesn't get you there, I want to let you know that from the backside of these program directors, which the providers, I'm sorry, I am not a provider. The FDFC is not a provider. We're an issuer. So behind that, we're doing a review of each one of these projects, from a pricing level review to whether it's an eligible product met by state statute. Your concern about whether somebody would lose their home. I had a contractor just the other day who had one of his salesmen in the field had told him that this was a government program. As soon as he found that out, he knew that the call was going to come from me, that they needed to handle that. They went and paid the assessment off. So I just want to let you know, I mean, there are guidelines here, there are structures in place to protect your consumers, but what I would ask that you guys look at is, you can look up all day long, what happens bad. It's going to be in every newspaper, but not what's happening that's good in a program is placed in a newspaper. So I think Devesh has tried to provide that to you. I'm trying to tell you that there is a review structure behind that, a safety net, if you will. And if you guys don't want to look at the residential side, I would just say to you, why would you not look at the commercial side? I drove in through downtown. Your downtown is beautiful. I mean, it's historical, and I think it can do a lot for your downtown to have this financing in place. But to say that you're going to allow 6 months for one project, which I think is valuable and is necessary to get this project done, I think that you guys should really consider and keep your eyes open to the fact that, at least from a commercial perspective, look at this program. Even if you looked at it for 6 months and then we came back and spoke about it again, so you guys can gain some comfort. But I know you were asking about who places the bond. I'm sorry, I went a little bit further.
So your agency does that?
We do, yes.
Okay.
We're an
and
issue.
So what? And then your money flows to Y Green or one of the others, who makes the individual loans.
Yeah. So what happens is the tax collector collects the money. It'll go in and it goes to a trustee.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about on the funding side from your end. I'm not the payment back, but you're going out to the private market. You're issuing taxable municipal bonds.
That's right.
Then you are directing those to a program administrator like Y Green.
So you have multiple residential multiple commercial.
So what the last bond issuance? What was it? What was the rate? The terms?
Well, it depends on. So they can go anywhere from a 5-year term up to a 30-year term, and your rate is going to be different depending on those terms. So you know what I mean. You're not. I don't have it sitting right here in front of you. I mean, I can provide you with our last bondings or the amount of those bonds, but I mean,
I'm just curious what the exact subsidy is.
So right now, we're a little on the smaller side. So Y Green is a much bigger provider. Right. They're not underneath our umbrella. Okay. But right now, we are doing somewhere in the range. We're bonding about 1 to 1.2 million, and about every month with 2 different providers. So that's, I mean, it's not a large number. It sounds large, but you're talking about
commercial or residential.
For residential, I'm talking about, right? So, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I just.
Okay. Any other questions?
Would you both answer?
No. Commissioner? No. Anybody from the audience like to ask a question about this? Yes.
Good evening. My name is David Loper, and I'm with the Avante Group. We own the Avante Nursing Home at 2000 Edgewood Avenue in Leesburg. We've been there for over 50 years, providing healthcare services to some of the most indigent and needy people in your community. Recently, we've been mandated to make some capital improvements concerning emergency generators, wind hardening of impact windows, new roofs, more energy efficient HVAC systems, and we're currently using PACE on a project in Inverness for the same improvements. And we have found PACE to be a very efficient and effective means for us as business owners of making these capital improvements. We don't see the assessment any different than we do our tax payment. We can plan for it on a monthly basis and pay for it at the end of the year, which is more forgiving than any mortgage would do. And we don't see any downside to it. You know, we're in a tough business. It's a marginal business. I wish we had a couple $1 million laying around that we could apply for these improvements, but we don't. We have to go out to the capital markets to make these improvements. And I'm not asking for a grant. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for a hand up. And I'd like you to approve the commercial side of this PACE funding for us and other businesses like us that need that help. I hope you reconsider. Like I said, we've been a long-standing community member for over 50 years, and we need this program to make the capital improvements necessary.
So you've already dealt with PACE and you're
Yes.
making payments to them?
Yes.
So when did you use them before?
We've used them in Inverness at our nursing home.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Okay. Do you want to make an amendment on that commercial?
Should we just vote this down and let you bring a new
Yes.
resolution, or would you rather us amend it? I don't care.
Do you want to see who's in favor of doing the commercial to
Surely,
save us a
yeah.
lot of time in
That
case
would
it's
be
not?
good.
Because I'm a no on both.
I'm a no on more than 6 months on the commercial because I feel that they're competing with banks that are making loans. But I guess I feel that this city got involved with some deals
And I'm good with 6 months to see what happens, and we can look at it 6 months, see if we want to continue it, see if it works. For other commercial, we have another commercial entity with Avante, and they may need PACE funding as well. So I mean, we can assist local Leesburg business who, for whatever reason, may not be able to get a bank loan. So I mean, I would like to see us look at 6 months to see where we can help our commercial, especially in a nursing home, which is funding is a little different than a different for-profit business. So I'm good with 6 months.
Mr. Morrison, is
Yes.
an amendment all right, or should we just vote on this and then bring the other back as a new one?
Sensing the direction it appears to be headed, I think an amendment would be fine.
Okay. So I'd like to make an amendment to this.
move to amend the ordinance for 6 months, commercial only, with an expiration of 6 months unless we take other action.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah, looking weird over here.
Yeah. Would that give me the authority to execute the agreement with PACE?
No, the agreements would have to be
They need to come back.
redone in order, because the underlying agreements have stated terms
Okay,
in
that's
it.
why I was saying
Why
we
don't
should
I,
vote it
can I
down.
suggest this? Because I think it's cleaner and I think it's where you want to head.
vote on
I
this?
would vote on this resolution, okay? You guys don't want the resident, you guys don't want the program. So I would rescind the program and then instruct me to bring back a commercial program at the next meeting.
Okay.
So vote on the
I'm in
reso.
agreement with John and Dan
Yep.
on that.
Vote on the reso, that puts you where you want to be.
Okay.
And then you guys are going to instruct me
back
to
to
bring
the
back
other
a
one,
commercial.
yes.
So I rescind my second. After the amendment.
And I think there's a
Dan
motion
takes
on the.
back his motion.
And I think there's a motion on the floor to approve the reso.
Yes.
So if you want to rescind the program, vote yes on the motion.
Okay.
Yes on the motion rescinds it?
Yes.
Yes.
Just cancels it out.
Yeah, yes.
No does not rescind it, so it's yes would
You want to
rescind it.
vote no, not her. I mean, you want to vote yes.
Roll call, please.
Yes is no.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes rescinds it.
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Mayor Dennison?
Yes. Okay, so, Mr. Minner,
I'll work with the PACE folks and we'll bring back a
Commercial.
model commercial with a 6-month term.
correct. Thank you. Okay, C5. Somebody like to introduce, please?
Yeah, introduced and asked to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, formally adopting the March 2020 Leesburg, Florida Downtown Master Plan and providing an effective date.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Maybe I didn't need to pull it. I guess I just want to be clear what I'm voting for. I like the master plan. I like everything about it. I guess I just was crystal clear of what I was voting for on the consent agenda.
Okay.
You're just voting to adopt the plan.
I'm fine with that.
And then-
Puts the process to bed. I'll be back to you probably next meeting or the next few meetings. Select some projects out of the plan and move forward.
Okay, I just want to be
So
sure we
this-
weren't
This
approving.
is just step
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
I
is
just want to be sure I wasn't approving something beyond
just
that.
a
Okay,
formal-
sorry for pulling it.
Formal motion to adopt the plan.
Hey, listen, as long as it clears it up, that's fine.
Mike, you're over the year mark now.
No more,
That's good. Al might be trying to
my
sneak
rookie
something
year.
in on us. Al might be trying to build a bridge. Mike.
Never.
I want to be sure I wasn't approving everything in here.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
Car bridge.
Okay, roll call.
That won't happen.
Commissioner
before
Christian?
you
Yes.
start on here.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Mayor Dennison?
Yes. Okay, here we go. 6A, would somebody introduce, please?
Introduce that to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, calling for a referendum election to be held on November 3rd, 2020, for the purpose of proposing to the electorate amendments to Article 1, Sections 8 and 9 of the City Charter to create 5 single-member districts for the City Commission in lieu of the current 3 single-member districts and 2 at-large seats, providing the wording of the question to be placed on the ballot, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date for both this ordinance and the amendments to the city charter if approved by the electorate.
Anybody want to approve?
Did we set the boundaries yet?
No, this is a process to the
Excuse me, there's a motion on the floor. Let's have an approve and a second, and we can then discuss.
Well, I'm not going to vote on it until I have an answer to
No,
my
you're not
question.
going to vote on it until we start discussing it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
I thought you meant like calling for a vote. I'm like,
Mike,
now? Why am I ready to vote? Now I'm ready. Now we can talk.
We're not voting. You can talk.
Y'all been going too long.
Yeah, I think so.
So we'll do that later.
Right. Your districts are set by the charter as far as your seats.
Right.
What this question asks is a referendum, so you got to go change the charter through referendum. This is an ordinance that sets the referendum question to ask the community, do you want to change the way the composition of the city is made up?
I'm with you.
If they vote yes, then you start changing the maps.
So
And
would
you
we
can
be
do
able
that
to
by
have that
ordinance.
done by?
And the map change would not come until after the 2020 census data is available, which we're
Okay.
about a year out.
I got it.
And there are a host of other details that will have to be ironed out, and I can't even begin to predict what those are because you have an election coming up in between. But if there end up being 2 commissioners in one district because of an at-large and a district commissioner being in the same place, you've got to figure out how to deal with that, what the transitions are, and that sort of thing.
So what I was wondering is, like me and Lisa will be up this year, which is no problem. We're in 2 different districts, but on the 22, there'd be 3 seats. So would it be done by then, possibly?
To get it done earlier than 22, you would need to do a special census count, okay? So my guess is you probably, depending on how fast the village's growth is in the villages of West Lake, will dictate when you want to start having this in place. They're saying 23 when you start seeing dirt move, so you're probably looking at 24 before people are living there. So you're probably looking 25, 26 when you want to have your boundaries changed. So probably somewhere around 24 is when
So
you
we would
would
be
want to call your special census.
In place by.
So
time
the
it's
answer,
needed.
So it's Mike's problem.
Yeah.
if he runs for reelection. But basically what you did, this puts it in place to ask the question and to start the process moving, which is going to take some time.
I clearly, I now understand.
So Fred, District 2, how would that affect District 2?
Can't tell you right now.
No, I'm just saying with the federal,
District 2 would continue to be a majority-minority district because that's decreed already.
All right.
Would not affect that. It might affect the boundaries,
Okay.
but it's not going to affect the nature of it.
I didn't want to be crucified. All right. John made this change, no.
And we don't actually draw the map, right? It's just
You do.
We do draw the
You
map.
do
We
that.
just have to keep a certain number of people in each one.
Yeah, they have to be roughly equivalent in population, and District 2 has to meet that criteria
Okay.
that were imposed by the federal decree. And like I said, depending on how things shake out when this is finally implemented, you're going to have potentially an odd commissioner out because 2 might be in the same district, probably will be,
Right.
unless the lines are drawn. And theoretically, you could draw around that, but it's a practical problem, I think.
Stop talking, Craig, and make Mike quit, man. Mike said, I'm not running for re-election. Y'all causing too many problems.
Okay, anything else? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck?
No.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Dennison?
Yes. Okay, would somebody like to introduce 6B as in boy?
I introduce and recommend, read by title only, Madam Mayor.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 9.36 acres, being generally located south of University Avenue and west of U.S. Highway 27, lying in Section 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3 and providing an effective date.
Okay, that's first reading. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, that second reading on this one will be on April 13th. 6C. Somebody introduce, please.
Introduce has to be read by title only.
An ordinance amending the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use designation of certain property containing approximately 9.36 acres from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg general commercial for property generally located south of University Avenue and west of U.S. Highway 27, as legally described in Section 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Okay. I hear no conversation on this. This will be second reading on April 13th. 6D.
Introduce has to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning approximately 9.36 acres from Lake County PUD Planned Unit Development to City Spud Small Planned Unit Development to allow for retail, commercial, medical services, and office uses for property generally located south of University Avenue and west of U.S. Highway 27, as legally described in Section 25, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Again, this is first reading. This will be done April 13th, our second reading. 6E. Somebody introduce, please.
I'll introduce, ask that it not be read, and move for approval.
Yes.
It's first, okay, this is first reading, and the second reading will be on the 23rd, the next meeting, okay?
I love the spirit of it.
Informational reports. City attorney items?
Nothing tonight.
City manager?
Nothing.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson,
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Roebuck,
So I do have a little bit on the coronavirus, COVID-19. I think it's time, and I've had some discussions with Al, that we do need to start making preparations, not panic, but preparations. And to emphasize that while we were actually in this meeting, Governor DeSantis has now declared a state of emergency in Florida to unify the command structure. So things are moving forward. And I know from talking to people that they kind of still think that this is not a big deal, and hopefully it's not going to be. But 3 weeks ago in Italy, they had 3 cases. And also while we're in this meeting, they just announced that the entire country of Italy is on quarantine. They've canceled all large gatherings, churches, everything through April 2nd, all schools. So they went from 3 cases to 60 million people in quarantine, 9,000 cases. So it can happen very quickly. And if we wait to make preparations till after it happens, that's too late. So I think, just want to emphasize, especially for people watching this, that really everyone says it, but wash your hands. That's like literally the number one thing you can do to help stop the spread is washing your hands. For elderly people, the CDC today came out and said, especially those over 60, you should try to get extra months of your medication because of supply chain disruptions. It's likely that pharmacies will run out of some medications or they'll be delayed. You should really consider having enough food for 2 to 3 weeks. So if there is a quarantine type situation, you can. And then also be thinking about elderly people who need assistance. If you have family or friends, how you can help them, because they especially shouldn't be going out if there were an epidemic situation, given the fatality rate is so much higher for those over the age of 70. And then I think while we're not there yet, I think we really need to be thinking from the city standpoint about at what point do we start implementing forced social distancing in terms of events. I know we have the art festival this weekend. I think it seems premature, but I honestly think that's something we have to see what happens over the next couple of days and make determinations there. Bike Fest coming up, that's a huge one. That bringing a couple 100,000 people here, we don't know yet, but in a couple weeks I think we will. And I think it's very much in the realm of possibility that we could have to take the position that we would have to cancel that, as well as other large, whether it's rec programs, whether it's running the community building. So not calling for any of that action now, but I think it's important that we be aware that it could happen, and it could happen very quickly based on some of what other areas are seeing. So that's it.
If I might add on to that, CDC has a website that you can go on and get a lot of information from there. So it's cdc.org. Thank you.
Commissioner Hurley.
So do we need to make some kind of decision tonight on 13th Street, or is this?
No, I'll get back with Mr. Harris. Probably the next step, I think, for the Baptist Church is going to be for them to do their traffic study so that they can come back, report the impact, get the car counts, what traffic is going down there.
All right, but let me ask you something. Did we require Beacon College to do a traffic study?
No, we did not.
And we're fixing to give them a second road, and I promise you a lot more people go down those streets than go down 13th Street. Every day, all day long.
I don't need traffic study.
So I don't know that, I don't think we should make them pay to get a traffic study.
I recommend that you get a traffic study on 13th Street. I think it's a little bit different than the segment that we gave Beacon.
I could probably agree with these guys if Melon Patch is okay, but I get the idea they're not okay.
No, a lot of traffic goes down 13 to get to their shows, and it's
But I've quit
4 days
driving.
a week.
I've caught myself not driving it anymore because I just, the kids are always crossing, so I just find another way to go. Even though it's 15 miles an hour, it's just better to go another way.
Okay, I still think Beacon should be consulted, and I'll be glad to stop by and talk to them.
You said Beacon, I think you meant Melon Patch.
Melon Patch, right.
Because if they're okay with it, I don't have a problem with it.
I think you have them do a traffic study, have them put together a PUD, that is their campus plan, and within that PUD is where the withdrawal of the street would be.
What does that cost?
Traffic study?
Yeah, just roughly. I'm
25?
still learning, you know.
I don't know. I would guess 25.
I'm sorry?
15 to 20.
Okay, yeah.
Do you think legally we need a traffic study? Is that why you're?
If you guys want to go without a traffic study, you can. That's a big. You've given up a big chunk of street. You haven't heard from the community. You've heard the First Baptist Church portion yet. So when this goes through PUD, you're going to get other public input, and I think you're on the safe side to require that.
Well, could we get the public input before we decide on a traffic study? I hate for the church to spend $15,000-$20,000 on a traffic study.
I think Melon Patch is the key. I don't see where else you're going to get pushback.
How many shows a year does Melon Patch have?
They 5 or 6, and then it's 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So I mean, they're busy.
The show, you mean, is like 3 weeks?
Right.
And they have about 5 of them.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 15,
5 or 6
20
of those.
weeks a year.
Plus extra things for the kids and whatnot.
If your all's direction is no traffic study, I'm sure that the church will appreciate that. We'll double check with Melon Patch, respond accordingly, and if Melon Patch is okay, we can advise the Baptist Church to start put together the PUD.
I think one of the other details I thought about during Art's presentation was what does that do to Line Street? If you can still come through there and go up, it might make it a different situation than if they're going to shut that intersection down.
There's some regional impact there. You've got, I mean, the beacon thing. You're talking, a block of a city block. You close 13th Street down, and I think everybody's knee-jerk reaction is that 13th Street is just Baptist Church traffic. But you're talking about 3 or 4 block section. You're talking about impacts on Line. You're talking about impacts on Center. You're talking about impacts on Main. And I think you got impacts on 27. And I think that all needs to get looked at. That if that section wasn't in there, how is everything going to flow?
So the intersection of Line is being, and 13th is being closed?
The request.
Okay, I didn't think so. I was looking at traffic.
Is from Main to Line.
Gotcha.
On 13th.
So traffic come down Line, turn north, and go to Center. That's what I thought. Okay.
Well, I just think that at this juncture, I think it's a little bit of a colossal waste of money to make them go pull that. I'm only on that street 5 days a week, but I don't see a lot of traffic. I see traffic that pulls in and goes to the church and pulls out and goes, and so I just don't. I don't think at this point calling for it.
And I'm not saying Melon Patch I've already made a decision based on what Melon Patch does. I'm just saying it's an easy decision if Melon Patch is okay with it. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if they're against it, I'm against it.
What about the additional traffic pulling out on 27? There's no traffic light at that one street. There is on Center Street, but
I'll tell you, I would rather have the Baptist Church exiting out on 27, which is a 2-lane road, than trying to exit out on Main Street. I don't know if you've ever been there during the day when all the traffic from the schools are going back and forth, but that line goes all the way down Main Street, both directions on the other side of 27. You're stuck, man. And at least on 27, if someone's coming, you have a left lane still cruising, you can turn to the right and go, and you have a median that you can come out into. But on Main Street, man, you're just stuck.
Yeah, that's the thing. All the traffic problems there that I've encountered are from the church, and they're going to fix their traffic problems. So I think that in general, I don't see how.
I mean, I'll be mad because by the time they get it done, my kid won't be going to school there no more. But it's a personal thing,
Is the state involved in this at all? Okay, this is not a DOT issue.
Yeah, probably when they do their improvements out on the 27.
I guess that's where I was
they'll need a
going with that.
permit from there.
Someone raised the question of them coming out on 27. I thought that might bring the state into the loop.
It may. So no study? Is that what?
I don't think that at this point there's a reason for it.
Okay.
And I love everybody. I don't know. That's it. I'm done.
Mayor Dennison.
Coming up very shortly, you're going to be receiving census forms. From March 12th to 20th, they will be mailed to the house. You can respond online, by phone, or mail them back. People will get reminder letters on March 16th to 24th, reminder postcards until April 3rd, and then after that, they are going to be counting homeless people March 30th and April 1st. April 1st, the census is observed nationwide. In April, the census will begin in college students who live on campus and senior citizens who live in senior centers and others among large group of people. April 8th to 16th, anybody who has not responded will get reminder letters again and paper questionnaires. And then May 13th, if a household does not respond to the invitations, a census taker will follow up in person. Now, the government has hired 500,000 people to start going around, and in case they have to take, the information in person. I just want to stress, this has been done in this country since 1790. This is not something brand new, and it affects education programs, it affects infrastructure work, it affects the number of congressmen that we can have in Washington representing us, and it affects, there's got to be 60 or 70 organizations that get funding from the U.S. government dependent on our population and on the people who are living here. And to put it in numerical amounts, every man, woman, and child, including newborns, that don't respond costs this area $1,800. So if 10,000 people don't respond, multiply that out by $1,800. And we've had a lot of people not responding because they're afraid they're going to be found out by the government. This is not the way the government is working on this. They're not asking you if you're citizens. They're just taking a spot in time of where the people are. And we lose out in Florida on a whole lot of government money because of the snowbirds, because of the immigrants, because of the farm workers and whatnot. So please respond to your census. It's got, like I said, it's back to 1790, and these are important. And especially if you want to look up your history and your people that lived here before. The information is on that tells you your parents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents. I mean, it really is important. So please respond to those forms. Thank you. That's it.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Woo-hoo.